Good morning, everybody. Happy hump day to you. It's Dave Neal on this January 22nd, 2025, and here are all the stories we have for you this morning for your rush hour ride to work. We're going to open with Rachel Lindsay. Now that she's fully divorced from Brian Abasolo, TMZ finds her on the streets, and she'll discuss what it's like being free. And Chris Brown sues multi-$100 million lawsuit against a company and a streaming platform that is airing a documentary he is saying is defamatory. And also Blake Lively responds to Justin Baldoni's PR stunt sharing their scene. She actually says this actually defends my side, so we'll get into that. And also a little more info on the surprise elopement by Bachelor star Christina Mandrell and Bachelorette and Bachelor in Paradise star Braden Bowers. I'll share what they had to say. And a bishop calls out Donald Trump in church, right in front of his whole family. You're going to really be interested to see their reactions to this, I don't know, call it brave moment where the bishop tells him to have some grace and mercy for some folks. And also we'll get into the pardons, the January 6th pardons, and what folks are saying, including the police officer who was assaulted on that day. So I'll have all those stories and so much more. It's all coming up next on The Rush. You're going to hate me for the clip I'm about to share with you. This is Billy Ray Cyrus getting roasted over his train wreck performance. Daily Mail shared this from the Liberty Ball. The 62-year-old was plagued by technical difficulties and at one point seemed to have lost interest in performing altogether. I don't think we've got any interest in listening to him, but just in the off chance that you don't know if you're good at your job, neither does Billy. Have a listen to this.
Gonna take my horse, Old Town Road, I'm gonna take my horse to the Old Town Road. I can't no more. Y'all can put your hands together now like that. If you encourage them out, keep going. They told me to kill as much time as possible, so.
All right. That's going to be a no for me, folks. More like a wrecking ball, if you ask me. Yikes. All right, so from Billy Ray to Parvati Shallow. She's on Deal or No Deal Island. She's one of the legends of Survivor, one of my favorite contestants of Survivor. And if you told me I would enjoy Deal or No Deal Island, I'd never believe it. But here I am, being basic. As I age, I'm back on network TV. There was a time and a place I would have never watched Deal or No Deal Island. It's really good. It might be the best game show out there. They're not paying me to say it. Here's Parvati and why she and why she decided to get back into the reality TV world. Have a listen.
After your iconic stint on The Traitors, you had many exciting opportunities to pursue. What made you say yes to Deal or No Deal Island?
Deal or No Deal Island has a rad host. It's Joe Manganiello from Magic Mike fame. And the man's got moves, and he's also got a nice fashion sense. Also, it's on this exotic island, and there's food. It's like glamping. And you could win millions and millions of dollars. So
when you've been in reality TV, the bar is very low. It's on an island. They have food. The host is hot. What do you want from me?
How could I say no to that?
Did you find your prior experience on reality TV an advantage or a hindrance at sometimes on Deal or No Deal Island?
It's so tricky when I come out and play reality competition games because people know me from my past. My reputation as the Black Widow precedes me, and I can't shake it.
And look, I'm not going to give spoiler updates on the season, but, you know, when there's good movies, I like to share them with you. And when there's good TV shows, I like to let you know. And I think Deal or No Deal Island is just a fun show to watch. All right, let's get into Rachel Lindsay. TMZ caught up with her after settling her divorce with Brian Abasolo. Again, former Driving with Dave guest Brian Abasolo. Here's what she had to say.
Rachel, it's always good to see you. One of, if not my favorite Bachelor contestant of all time.
Thanks.
How does it feel now that the divorce is out of the way? You can finally move on with your life. I know that was a bit of an ordeal.
It feels great.
Yeah.
It feels like a fresh start.
That's good, isn't it? So you can have a next chapter of your life. The past is the past now.
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Could I ask you about Rachel and Matt splitting up? I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to them, so I don't really know. I mean, you never see it coming, right?
It's true, but I mean, they went through a lot. And then, for them to break up 4 years later, I thought they were like To Death Do Us Part vibes.
I kind of hoped they were, right?
Yeah.
She says, I hope they were till death do us part. I mean, no offense to Rachel Lindsay, but she called Rachel Kirkconnell Rachel KKK. But either way, don't, let bygones be bygones. So it looks like Rachel Lindsay and Rachel Kirkconnell could maybe go on the market together and look for men, right? Why not? Single ladies, put your hands up. All right, Chris Brown is in the news. He says, I'm not who people think I am. Sues Warner Brothers for $500 million over docuseries. Says, I'm not a rapist. Suing the producers behind the investigation discoveries Chris Brown, A History of Violence docuseries, alleging the project was full of straight-up lies. In new court documents obtained by TMZ, he accuses Warner Brothers Discovery, Ample, and other individuals behind the series of promoting and publishing defamatory claims against him. Listen, obviously winning a defamation case is extremely hard, but if he thinks he's innocent, go for it. Again, he's definitely not innocent of a lot of things, that's for sure. He's had a very violent past we've seen with his exes and things like that. But again, he's an example of someone who continues to get second chances. All right, well, we shared yesterday the big news story, which was that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's video came out again. Justin Baldoni released the video of them in their scene talking to each other as they slow danced, and she claims that this isn't the own that he thinks it is, and says the footage that was shown yesterday actually shows Justin Baldoni victimizing her, says there was no intimacy coordinator. Now, I'm going to share more specifics of the statement she just came out with in the next video. So catch me on YouTube later this morning, and we will get into the thick of this story. There's almost too much to cover with this ongoing story that I can't do it justice right here on the podcast. But I did want to share a clip of what the TMZ folks were saying after seeing this very bizarre video released by Justin Baldoni.
War just got a little more interesting because that Blake Lively, in her lawsuit against Justin Baldoni alleging sexual harassment, said, among many other things, that Justin was creepy when they were shooting this movie, kind of coming up to her and saying, oh, your perfume smells so good, you smell so good, and making it sound like he was just off the reservation when he did that.
Right. Well, there was one scene in particular that she referenced, a scene where they're slow dancing. And in her lawsuit, she says, well, we didn't have mics on. We didn't use any of the audio. They didn't use the audio in the movie, but they did have microphones on because Justin's team has just released about 10 minutes of unedited footage, most of it from that scene where they are slow dancing. And you can hear all of their conversation. You can judge whether or not he's being creepy. But one thing that is very, very clear, they were not getting along. And you can see them, because they weren't using the audio, they could say whatever they wanted to each other, and they were arguing about all of their creative differences on almost everything about this movie. Watch.
And then they get into it where she says, I think we have to back up. And then he responds as the director, she says, we're not on our marks. And I think the light is behind you a little bit. He said, it's actually a little better when it's that way. And she said, oh, okay. So anyway, yeah, it's weird. But, as far as creative differences go, it's his movie. She wasn't the director. He was. Also, neither one of them are the cinematographers. And at some point, listen, this is why people like to direct and not just act, because you don't have much control as an actor, right? It's kind of like stand on your mark and deliver your lines. And unless you're some once-in-a-generational talent like Meryl Streep or, Leonardo DiCaprio or, I'm talking if there's different A-list levels, she's on lower A-list. She's an A-lister, but she's not one of these untouchable several dozen people who can just do whatever the hell they want on set. In the end, there's money in the line, and she signed a contract to read the lines out loud the way the director wants them to. So she clearly showed here she wanted more collaboration than he was willing to offer. And I don't know, it's like, it's kind of like does she want to collaborate, or is she trying to be a control freak? Because telling the director as you slow dance with him, hey, you're blocking the light, it's like they'll figure it out. There's 17 people watching the cameras. There's cinematographers, camera operators, there's producers on set. They're going to get the shot they want to get. Just like, don't worry about it. But obviously there's more to the story than that. We'll continue to cover this later today. We broke over 100,000 views yesterday on our YouTube channel, something like 3,000 new subscribers. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will do this justice. I will stay impartial, and I will continue to show all sides of this he said, she said, because it's not like we don't believe people. We're just digesting the footage and saying, well, what is it? Where's the harassment? Him flicking your lip, is that the harassment? And maybe it is. And maybe it is. But again, we'll share her full statement coming up in the next episode. All right, up next, we got a quick message from the new lovers, or I should say new husband and wife, Braden and Christina. All right, here it is, the newlyweds from Bachelor Nation, Braden and Christina. Don't mind the cheesy background music. It's the Bachelor podcast, but here they are sharing a tidbit following their, I guess, elopement.
Please welcome the newlyweds, Mr. and Mrs. Bowers. We just watched your wedding video, which listeners, you can now watch on Bachelor Nation's YouTube channel.
Honestly, it was just as special and amazing, and I don't know, as I remember it, like it was awesome.
We've had such a big year. I mean, just so many things have happened.
As soon as we got back from the trip, we're like, hey, we want to let's do this thing.
There's this patch that we kind of like on this trail. We're like, maybe there.
What year are you guys from? There's this patch on this trail that we like.
You found your minister on like a random site online. Were you like, damn, hopefully this girl's good?
She's like, have you ever gotten it that you look like the guy from the Bachelor show?
Paradise.
Yeah. Like from Paradise. He wore those crazy earrings. We started like doing all this planning, and it really started to feel like the planning was for everyone else and not really for us. The thing that was so amazing is when we got married and the way we got married, it was like afterwards, it did feel like there was a big difference.
All right, he said it felt like it was a big difference. And by the way, not Braden and Christina's fault, but Bachelor Happy Hour literally overproducing the hell out of that scene. Turn the dang music down. Oh boy, Joe and Serena are still the hosts of this show. I didn't know the show existed. Well, listen, Bachelor comes back next week, so I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about in Bachelor Nation. But boy, let's switch to the election, right? We got a new president here, and this is a Danish member of the European Parliament telling President Trump that Greenland is not for sale. Have a listen to this.
President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland has been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated part of our country. It is not for sale. Let me put it in words you might understand. Mr. Trump, f*** off.
Jeez.
It is not okay in this house of democracy. Thank you. Regardless of what we think of Mr. Trump, it is not possible to use such language.
All right, well, he did. He said, President Trump, go F yourself. You can't have our Greenland. All right. And Trump's like, well, come on. Are you flirting with me? Is this part of the negotiation? How do they do it up there? All right, so this is a super viral moment I wanted to share. Very powerful. A bishop calls out Trump to his face at church. Now, I don't know why Trump's at church. Maybe this is part of the celebration, the tradition. I have no idea. What's interesting, though, if you watch this on YouTube, if you're on the video, watch everyone around Trump, including JD. Everyone starts side-eyeing the bishop. It's very clear to me that they are like, oh boy, here we go. But Trump actually doesn't share any emotions. He just listens to the bishop's plea to have mercy on some of the, minority groups out there. Have a listen to this.
We make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families.
Right there, J.D. Vance looks at his wife, but his wife continues making eye contact.
Some who fear for their lives.
Tiffany Trump looks to her side. Melania's stoic.
And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority...
It looked like J.D. Vance looked to his wife and said, "I told you so." I couldn't really tell. We're going to have to get some lip-reading experts on that.
...of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger.
Wow.
For we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
Wow. That's pretty wild. That's wild for so many reasons, right? This bishop went the distance to say, don't lead with fear and scare tactics, and with so much grace and poise, explain that they're humans too, that they've been strangers too. That, wow, I specifically didn't listen to that ahead of time because I wanted to really soak that in. And, I give credit to the people right there who kept eye contact with the bishop. Several of the members of his family were talking and looking around, and it's like, no, a little respect for this bishop. I don't know anything about this bishop here, but I'm sure they've got quite the credentials to be delivering this sermon or speech, whatever the heck you want to call it. And good. Imagine being a bishop and having a chance to speak directly to the president in a house of God. And if he says, hey, I was shot at and I was saved, and to really try to speak to him and say, well, then how about all those others living a life of despair? Very powerful stuff. Now, will this affect any change? Yet to be seen. Here is a very interesting moment. We're going to talk about the January 6th pardons for a little bit. And this is an interesting moment when a reporter was asking Trump about all of the pardons that were for violent criminals. Have a listen.
That it's never acceptable to assault a police officer.
Sure.
Right? So then if I can, among those you pardoned, DJ Rodriguez, he drove a stun gun into the neck of a DC police officer who was abducted by the mob that day. He later confessed on video to the FBI and pleaded guilty for his crimes. Why does he deserve a pardon?
Well, I don't know. Was it a pardon? Because we're looking at commutes and we're looking at pardons. Okay, well, we'll take a look at everything. But I can say this. Murderers today are not even charged. You have murderers that aren't charged.
Not true.
All over. You take a look at what's gone on in Philadelphia. Take a look at what's gone off in L.A., where people murder people.
And by the way, first of all, he ran on law and order, right? And now he's saying murderers are not getting charged. So I guess it's okay for him to release people. And look, I said this all along. My general thoughts with the pardons would have been, if people were in jail for nonviolent crimes, maybe consider pardoning them. Or, shortening their sentence or whatever. But if they're in jail because they laid hands on police officers, in this case, a guy used a stun gun on a police officer's neck, and we have all of this, all of this evidence is out there. That's absolutely ridiculous, to the point which the union that represents the police officers are disavowing these pardons.
And they don't get charged. These people have already served years in prison. And they've served them viciously. It's a disgusting prison. It's been
agree that it's never acceptable.
All right, so then it goes in a loop. So there it is, the joint IACP FOP statement on the recent presidential pardons. Now, to be fair, they disavowed the pardons by Biden and Trump. Biden commuted some death penalty sentences to life in prison. And yeah, I mean, look, it's like, you can't, you know, when it comes to violence, you can't have it on one side, but then dismiss it on the other. If there's police officers getting attacked, they owe it to us. Like, they were just doing their job on January 6th, trying to keep people out of the Capitol. Now, I'm going to share what one of those police officers had to say and why he's seeking restraining orders. That story coming next. And by the way, regardless of what party you are, Democrat, Republican, these reporters are here to ask the tough questions. And really kudos for following up with this, saying, hey, J.D. Vance said you're not going to pardon violent offenders, so why did you?
People that you pardoned, though, assaulted officers. So I want to ask you about the Vice President, J.D. Vance. He said, this is a week ago, he said, if you committed violence on January 6th, obviously you should not be pardoned. Why is your vice president wrong?
Well, only for one reason. They've served years in jail. They should not have served, and they've served years in jail, and murderers don't even go to jail in this country. And we had 1,500. We have 16 under review. As you know, we commuted about 16 of them because...
All right, so and again, he just goes and says murderers aren't, you know, whatever. All right, well, either way, let's go to this story here. Here we have one of those law enforcement officers that responded to the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021, Michael Fanone, and here's what he had to say about the pardons.
Really, the only recourse that I have at this point was to seek protective orders, ordering that these individuals stay away from me and my members of my family and do not attempt to contact us. We don't feel as though we can depend on law enforcement in this country to protect us because it's no longer the Department of Justice. It's Donald Trump's Department of Justice. These law enforcement agencies, these police departments, are no longer these independent bodies. They now work for Donald Trump. But a piece of paper does absolutely nothing to protect me and my family. Sure. And I don't even know if they're going to grant these protective orders. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys have already shown a propensity for violence. They almost killed me on January 6th. Now they're free. And now they're free. And again, what I find so interesting about this this law enforcement officer is he doesn't necessarily look like the type of guy that would be on the side that he's on, which is a good reminder for everyone that it's not about what you look like and what side you're on. It's like, this is a guy who did his job and he was violently attacked. And then, to find out these people didn't even serve the time that they were convicted of serving, I don't know. And it's like, you just want it to be fair, right? You want everyone to be on the same page. And when you have conversations where you completely misremember history, you're not accepting reality. It's like when you can't accept you lost an election. So here's the BBC not buying the gaslighting that Elon Musk wasn't doing the Nazi salute. And to be quite honest, my opinion on this is like, I have no idea. That's my opinion. Obviously, it looks like he's doing it. The far right, the white nationalist groups are all happy he's doing it. I have no idea. But here's what what we're seeing in media is, I think a lot of people are ignoring this story because they just there's so much going on. I don't think this is the case, but if they did want to draw attention away from the other things going on, this certainly would be it. Again, I'm not looking that deeply into it, but for those that are saying, hey, this is a Nazi salute, you can't blame people for feeling that way, right? You might say, well, I don't believe so, but it's not like they're drawing some crazy conclusion. They watched it with their own eyes. Here's the BBC.
Love that we've been told for the past 5-6 years that the thing we need to be most frightened of is what pronouns people are using. And then someone actually does a Nazi salute behind the president's podium on live television, and we're fine with that. You do love that we've been...
And again, people in the comment section are saying if you did that gesture in Germany, you'd be arrested. That's right. It's illegal to do that in Germany. We have different rules here, but again, they're very sensitive to that gesture. And, all Elon did to defend himself was share photos of Democrats holding their hand up, as if holding your hand up is the same as the full-on gesture that he then did twice. Again, my opinion on it is that it's not going to change anyone's minds, and let's focus on policy, because what the hell else can you do? But better to know if this is your enemy where they stand, right? Better to know. And that's not me being an apologist. I just like, worry about what you can control, which is trying to get your political leaders to fight for policies that you want, and realize this is the consequences of losing an election. And again, I don't say that with any glee whatsoever. This is absolutely wild. All right, well, I'll be back this afternoon for more podcasting. But in the meantime, I've got my mid-morning video where we will be covering more of the Blake Lively story, because there is a lot to get into. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube if you aren't already. And if you're on the podcast app, give us a nice review. Maybe you're watching on YouTube, well, subscribe on the podcast and double dip. Why not? I'll see you this afternoon. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.